Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast. We have a very different style podcast today. I'm joined by fellow ADHD content creator and mental health advocate, Brave Dave. Dave uses his platform of over 700,000 followers to educate and help his viewers on ADHD topics and parenting topics, while also being just so hilarious and using comedy as a way to connect with the people that he's making content for. So I got connected with Dave a few months ago through a mutual friend of ours, Matt. And he's genuinely one of the funniest people that I've ever met. We have a small group chat with a couple of creators in it, and the amount of times that I've cackled out loud because Dave has said something is, countless at this point. So I wanted to talk to Dave about the impact that social media has had generally on mental health and the stigma around it, and specifically about the perception of ADHD now that creators like us are creating content on it. So buckle in. This is going to be a great episode. Welcome to the Busy Bee with ADHD podcast, a podcast about tools and strategies for ADHD, all while laughing at my very dumb but plump ass, Haley Honeyman. I'm an ADHD coach and influencer with the goal of helping my fellow ADHD pals. Let's get into it. So, Mr. Dave, hello. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fantastic. It's been a crazy day. Someone with ADHD, like you have those days where at the end of it, you're like, hell yeah. I did it all today. I pulled out all the spoons. I was on time for everything. Like gold star for me today.
Oh, yes, I love that. Congrats on recognizing it too. Sometimes I just burn through the day and then a week later I'm like, hey, that day a week ago was good. I should just remember that
Yeah,
one.
you got to give yourself the wins when you get them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, today we're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stuff, but I wanted to first and foremost give you the opportunity to, let the people know who the heck you are, because obviously I know you, but if someone has been living under a rock, who the heck are you?
I'm Brave Dave. I'm an ADHD parent and a mental health advocate. And, for a long time, I thought that my resume needed to be longer than that. But it doesn't need to be. That's what I care about. I care about trying to raise my kids right and, letting people know that I am trying to do my best just like everybody else is. I don't want people to think that I'm a creator that's, I'm not a motivational speaker. My job is to let you know that you're not alone in the way that you feel. And as long as I do that once a day, then I'm good. I'm good there.
I love that. I really, really love that answer. That's so good. And I know this kind of comes back to the very, very start. Today we're going to be talking a lot about content creation and how social media interacts with mental health and ADHD. So we kind of need to go back to the start here with, how did you get into content creation and specifically with ADHD content creation?
So I did parenting content exclusively. I tried to make content that was about parenting. It was comedy. It was to let you know similar things, that you're not alone in the way that you're parenting, and we all feel the same way about how our kids act. And I had mental health stuff involved, and more specifically, I wanted to let people know that it's okay to be weird. And I had a whole series about weird things that I do, that you probably do. And throughout the course of that series, everyone's like, I do that stuff, and I have ADHD and anxiety, Dave. And I think you might too. And I was like, whoa, this is supposed to be fun. And by episode 9 or something, when everyone's like, so did you talk to someone yet, Dave? I was like, okay, fine. All those little telltale signs, along with just some trouble at home, because adults with ADHD find out very quickly. That ramp goes to when you're a kid, it goes under the radar, and then you're an adult, and all of a sudden your responsibilities skyrocket. That's just a breeding zone for, things to go wrong,
Yeah.
So those two things coincided very quickly between letting people know what was going on in my life and experiencing it firsthand. They just kind of collided and said, you should probably find out why you are the way that you are. And then I did.
What did that do for you once you did find out that there was something else going on?
To be honest, so I had a history of substance abuse, and I'm 3 years
Mm.
sober. And there's always, thank you. Um, there's always this like irking feeling in your mind, that like you forget something and you're like, God, was it that bender? Did that burn out the four brain cells that I needed for that,
Mm.
memory there? And between that and just general lack of knowledge about myself, it makes you very unsure about not only why you are the way that you are, but if anybody else is, because everyone else seems to remember stuff pretty easily and be organized and be motivated to do things. And I'm just not. But I want to be.
Right.
So why? So for me, it was half of it was just, it was almost frustrating to be
Yeah.
able to have the knowledge and be like, well, shit, dude, and then you find out it's just a never-ending waterfall of information.
Hmm.
That was what was most gratifying and annoying at the same time. Was like,
Yeah.
there's so much information that I didn't know. And once you learn it, you're like, that was so much time that could have been different.
Yeah.
So that and even when I did suspect that it was ADHD and people were telling me that it was, that's never good enough for us, right? I mean,
Right.
for some people maybe, but I can't just walk around saying that I do. I
Hmm.
lived the life of an alcoholic. I pretended to be things I wasn't all the time. ADHD people do that all the time. We mirror people and reflect what people want to see, and mask. And so between mirroring and masking and the ego issues I had from substance abuse, there was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. So that was just like a step in the right direction for providing some identity
Yeah.
behind what was going on.
Totally. And you're so right about, getting that late diagnosis and then having to go back and almost like mourn the version of yourself that could have existed had you gotten your diagnosis earlier in life, right? Because we would have been completely different people if we had
Right.
had the tools and strategies nice and early, but we didn't, right? So,
Yeah,
oh, I feel that. I get that. It's just so frustrating. Um,
it is.
yeah, and I love that you say
But we're here
frustrating,
now.
right? Like I love that you say frustrating
Yeah.
because so many people like they're like, "Oh, it's the best news in the world that I've got it and it feels so good to know what's going on." But it can be so frustrating and like annoying to be like, "Oh god, that's what was going on." Like I hate that I didn't know sooner. So, I
Very
love that.
specific conversations,
Yeah.
that you can recall where people said things, and at the time you were just all thumbs. You're like, but now
Yeah.
you look back and you just have so much that you could have said to that person in that moment,
Mhm.
and but it is what it is, and we're here, and but I do like to try and appreciate where that all came from.
Totally. Yeah. And so you're a parent as well, as you said, like that's a big part of, your content creation journey. With having kids and having ADHD and being online and an influencer, what's kind of like the main message that you're hoping to get across to not only your audience, but to, young kids as well, like your own?
Oh, um, there's so much, you know what I mean? It doesn't surprise me at all that like people that are older than you always want to tell you the way things are. And of course, when you're younger, you're like, I don't want to hear that shit, dude. But now that I've had those years behind me of thinking that I knew what was going on, first thing I learned very quickly is that I don't know much.
Hmm.
It's the only thing I really do know is how much I actually don't.
Yeah.
Um, but out of all the lessons that I could tell somebody, I would just say there's nothing wrong with being eager or excited or motivated or doing, whatever it is that you want to do. You don't have to do everything.
Hmm.
Um, and that means so much on so many different levels. You don't have to please everyone. You don't have to be everyone's friend. Not even, because everyone hears you don't have to make everybody happy. I'm like, of course I don't have to make everybody happy. But what that means is with the whole world, the people in your life, you always want to make sure that you're liked, especially if you have ADHD.
Yeah.
And we have the tools necessary to make that happen typically. And I tell you what, the worst uh, part of trying to do that is not failing, it's succeeding. Because
Yeah.
if everybody likes you, you only have downward to go. Because someone's either going to realize that you're fake, or you're not going to get along with somebody eventually, or you're in a relationship that you didn't actually want to be in. All because you had this mission where you had to make everybody happy, you had to sign up for everything that you could sign up for, you had to buy everything that you could buy, And I get it. The older you get, the more freedoms you have. But I would just, even now, I'm still learning it today, trying to, bounce between projects that I want to do. And, I had to tell Matt that I couldn't do something that I told him I would do because I say yes to everything, not because I'm afraid of them being upset. I mean, it's part of it, but also because I feel like I just want to take on the world all the time, and it's just not necessary.
Totally.
Keep your circle small.
Yeah, I think a lot of young people struggle with that, especially with ADHD, of course. Like, I was victim of that for a very long time and still struggle with it too, that I overcommit and then I just like get into a cycle of burning out over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like, why does this keep happening? I feel like I can take on the world. And then my body reminds me, no, you cannot. You need to slow down.
Yeah.
And it's just like
Right.
a hard awakening every single time. So I'm like, God, I didn't learn. But yeah, that is, I love that. And how do you find that relationship with your kids too? Like, do they understand ADHD and kind of what that means for you?
They don't even know what it is.
Mm.
And there might be some people out there that's like, you had told your kids what ADHD is. That's like a cardinal sin, and you should be out there educating them. And I just don't want to right now, because I feel like the struggle that we have with other adults in the world is that um, you have two options. You can normalize something, or you can bring awareness to it. But the more awareness you bring, the more obscure it's going to be to people. You know,
Mm.
look at look at trans rights. The more that we educate people on transgender folk, the less receptive people are in some instances, even though it should be the opposite. But that's what happens. People don't like it when things get too much attention. So I'm trying to, I keep the same concept with my kids. Um, Whenever they bring up things specific, like they brought up a gay couple one time, and we keep it very short and sweet with that. Like, they love each other. They're done. That situation is done. If they have more questions, we'll answer them. But why would it be such a big talking point?
Mm.
I don't have a problem with educating kids and making sure that they're raised correctly to understand that people's brains are different, or that people's gender identities are different, or sexualities are different. But what I don't want to do is put such a magnifying glass in the subject that it turns into like intrusive cyclical thoughts, where they're like, well, because that's what's happening. I feel like with people with my generation that are very receptive to being open to these kinds of things, to open to mental illness, open to neurological and developmental disorders, very open to anything really, that things that we're trying to change.
Yeah.
But because we hear it so much, it runs around in our heads constantly, and we start to develop our own thoughts and feelings and opinions that just don't need to be there.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do with my kids. We haven't talked about ADHD yet. I suspect one of them has it, but I'm not going to talk about that either.
Mm.
It's something that I just, like we said before, not trying to do everything all the time. I'm trying to keep things simple for them because I overcomplicate things for me. So we'll tackle those kind of things when we get there.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned this idea of like bringing attention to it often, sparks that other side of the conversation. And so, we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years this like huge boom of creators that are advocating for mental health, and specifically with ADHD. Like, ADHD content creation has just like exploded. So what do you feel like the general perception of mental health was prior to that massive boom? And, after that, how have things shifted since then?
It's there are little things that I have a problem with the way people ingest information and generally within the past 5 to 6 years. I'm guilty of it. There, Flint, Michigan, and its residents went without clean drinking water for like an absurd amount of time. They might still not have clean drinking water. I couldn't tell you. That was a
Mm.
very big deal for a very long time, and then we stopped talking about it, and everybody forgot. That's how the information goes. It goes in, we process it for a moment, and then it's gone. And I feel that's kind of happening with mental health too. And it's frustrating because the people that are trying to put the information out there will sometimes feel frustrated or neglected because they put the information out there, it's received, and then it disappears, as if they're confused why that would be the case.
Right.
Mental health is not an exception to the way that information is processed nowadays. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way that it is. Um, I do think that I think there's a lot of flaws in the mental health social media world. Some stuff I'm guilty of, some stuff I see other people be guilty of. I think if someone is a painter, they can just paint and paint and paint and crank out new paintings every single day. ADHD only has so much subject matter. There's a lot, but there's only so much.
Yeah.
Um, Before you either have to make two decisions. I'm going to recycle information or I'm going to create new information. And one of those is less boring, you know? And unfortunately, it's the one that doesn't do us a whole lot of favors.
Right.
I don't blame them. That's what other people do. If they say, I either going to post my greatest hits again, or I have to come up with something innovative and new. And luckily with like comedy, my account, I feel like I have some leeway because there's different ways to portray that. But a lot of other people I feel don't take that route. And it's nobody that I align myself with. I think all of us make really good content that's good for the world. But you do see it. And I think that's the biggest flaw with mental health social media is that now that we're all kind of peaking and new people are coming in and soon they'll peak, we're hitting this rut where we say, okay, I have to make new content. What do I do? Do I just not make content until I think of it? Or do I just put out some random nonsense? And unfortunately, random nonsense often has some baggage with it that we don't need. And I think we have to find a way to either adjust and adapt to that or just get over it and stick to quality content.
Yeah, no, that is so, so true. And that does bring me to like one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, which was, we've talked about this in our group chat before without kind of naming names, but we've seen this type of creator begin to grow online and specifically in the ADHD community of, spreading misinformation for the means of gaining clout potentially. And so it really begs this question of like, what is the line for content creation and mental health? And what type of content do you see as being very harmful to the ADHD community?
If you had asked me this like in the beginning when I first started making it, my answer would have been, well, as long as you say that, you're not 100% sure or that you're not a professional, as long as you put that disclaimer out there for people, then that's good enough. It's not good enough because that's what I did. And I would still feel bad about some of the content that I would put out sometimes because I would say it and I would know that it was something that me as a person with ADHD did. And I had read some articles about that being the case. And then it would stop there. And I would make a video and I would say ADHD and emotional dysregulation. Was it true? Probably. Could have been a chance that it wasn't, though. Right. And now that's a tag on me now. You know what I mean? I have to either go back and research everything or hope that it's correct. I think it's more than just being accountable and saying, well, I'm just an influencer. Don't take my word for it. That doesn't work. That there are people with PhDs that create content. There are people that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in education and professional training to be who they are that make content. And whether or not your content is as good as theirs, you are on the same playing field in terms of the audience that you can reach and the information you can provide. So to simply say, well, I'm an influencer, so take it with a grain of salt. They're not going to take it with a grain of salt. I'll be honest, I don't fully remember the question that you asked me. Oh, the line, right.
The line.
Between content and damage.
Yeah.
I think the line is different for every creator because it manifests in different ways. But everyone knows it when they hear it or when they see it. When those people reach out to them and say, you're changing my life because of the videos that you make and the things that you say, and I have some questions for you. Or, with this video, what would you recommend based on this video that you made? And those people in those moments will say, internally they'll say, I didn't think that that would have as much of an impact as it did, and I don't know if I feel comfortable answering that question. And now again, you're in a rough spot as a content creator. You've put entertainment and mental health in the same category. So now you have to say to yourself, do I say that I actually don't know? And then they have to go, oh, well, he was Superman before, but he doesn't actually know. Do you
Yeah.
take that hit, or do you say, I'm just gonna give my best educated guess and dance around kind of this unwritten disclaimer?
Mm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people, I would guess, I know some at the very at the very least, a lot of people are taking those easier choices, which is provide my best guess and let them know, but who knows, right? But that's what I think. You can't
Mm.
do that. Whether you're educated or not, whether you have a PhD or not, whether you're a medical professional or not, if you're in this niche and you have a lot of followers or you have a lot of traction, you are an authority. That's what you are. You're an authority on the subject matter for social media. And I think some people forget that and what kind of pull that has.
Yeah.
So we just need to really weigh the responsibility that we have
Yeah.
before we keep pushing content further, I think.
Totally. And I think that's something that we don't often talk about as creators as well, like individually together, is like we're taking on a huge responsibility when we decide to start making that content. Um,
Right?
and in our little content creation world, you and I have something very much in common, is that we are both performers in a sense, right? Like I think that we're
Yeah.
both goofy, we like comedy, we want to make people laugh and feel good, right? And so we want to educate but also make people feel good. And I've noticed online that there is now this huge discourse between this idea of like authenticity and authentically showing up online versus being performative online. How do you think performance interacts with how you create content, and how does that affect the ADHD message?
Right. I could probably have more followers if I removed the fourth wall breaking content that I make.
Hmm.
If I kept everything as skits, I would probably have more followers. If I kept everything as comedy, I would probably have more followers.
I've thought the same
If I
thing as
didn't,
well.
yeah, that's like it's the number, and people will make fun of creators because they'll say, "Oh, look, a creator's got an opinion. They got big, and now they have to voice their opinion on blah blah blah."
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes that's an ego thing where people think I'm important now, so now I can say whatever I want to say. But for me, I saw what was happening. Right, I did. I'm off to start a new hobby, and then it just kind of engulfed everything else.
Yeah.
you know and I would put out content and I'd say this is important things that you should know that help me with my ADHD when it comes to keeping my life organized. And then I would go live after the video and people would say, how I have to start a new hat. I'm like, yeah, I know. And again, I love that. I like being silly. um, but even if the content won't do well, and I've got friends that monitor my content and kind of provide very upfront critical feedback, and they'll be like, "Dude, that video sucked. I just want you to know. Keep it up. Don't keep it up. Whatever. This one wasn't good." And
Hmm.
I kind of rely on them for those really blatant opinions. And they'll tell me, they'll be like, "It's just not hitting," as you would say.
Yeah.
And I know that. But I think it's important to create the rounded character. You know, I think that's important because otherwise, what will happen is, from a professional standpoint, if you play into that for far too long, people lose sight of who you are, and then they won't want anything else. And you will pigeonhole yourself into a super niche where you're not allowed to make anything else but skits. So
Right.
I like making that content anyway, but I specifically do it because I refuse to get boiled down into the skits or the songs or whatever. It's just a part. And the best advice was some random video I saw, some random guy. I probably followed him. I should have. I hope I did. Um, and his advice was, you don't need the biggest audience, you need the right audience. Um, if they didn't like it, and it's far beyond, well, screw them. They don't like it, they can leave. You be 100%. It's beyond that. It's the whole community of the people that are behind what you're doing that know when they see a video and it's totally unlike the video that you made 4 days ago. They're like, That's just what he does. That's just what he does, baby. That's the kind of content he makes. That's what you want,
Yeah.
And I know that I should repost my viral content. I know that I should do the same thing over and over every single day if it works. I know all the tips and tricks about how to gain the most followers, but they won't know me.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't know me. And that does not have longevity. The shelf life on that kind of persona and content is so low.
Yeah.
And that's why you see ebb and flows in who's currently, interesting to people.
Totally.
And I can't get pigeonholed into that. I won't.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way about my content. Like, I think we both value comedy really highly, and there is only so much comedy you can put out in a skit format before it just feels inauthentic, right? Like, it doesn't feel always like you because you're thinking about the audience watching it. So I love that you do very similar videos to me. I mean, you've been way more successful, but I love how similar we are in that sense, that it's just like throw out something random, stupid that we're thinking of or like laughing about. And sometimes those videos blow up too. And you're like, oh, okay, people like to also see this other side of us, right? Which is so affirming and nice.
I think you do it great. You want to know what I knew about you early on? Matt showed me you, and I was like, okay, this is some good content. I like her ADHD content. But the thing that just like mesmerized me, that said, I'm going to watch everything that she ever puts out if it comes my way, was that you made content while you were pooping. And I just thought that was the funniest shit. I was like, that is so real. That is just like, I won't even do that, and I'll do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
I was like, she's just sitting there taking a poop, talking to us.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I was like, I'll watch anything now. That's the realest thing I've seen all year.
I'm so glad. I can't stop getting videos that do well where I'm either on the toilet or talking about farts in some way. So I'm trapped now doing those, but hey, I'm happy about it.
Right.
Okay, so one last thing I wanted to talk about was that, and I think this is related to us as well, is that with so many creators now in our area of content with ADHD and mental health, I've heard that this kind of niche, if we were to call it that, has become really saturated now. And so we're seeing the top creators like Connor DeWolf, if we're looking at him, they're focusing on new projects now or moving into different directions. For yourself, we've seen like the skeleton merch and the stuff you're doing there, which is so cool. What do you think the future of content creation and mental health will be online? And where do you think, the top creators are going to be moving to?
That's a good question. So let me ask you a question in return.
Right.
If I told you that you could have any number of followers, and all these followers would see 10 of your videos and they all loved you and would instantly follow you, how many followers would you take a la carte just right now? Any number, no, sky's the limit.
I don't, like a million.
That's it? A million? I mean, there's like 10,000 creators with a million followers. Why not 10 million? Why not 156 million? Why not every follower? You know what I mean? What would you do if you had them? You know what I mean? I think some people forget I won't even say the purpose of being on here is. I think people forget what their purpose of being on here is. For me, I just wanted to have fun and make content. I'm not saying that's the same corny reason. That is why I'm still here, but it's different now. I think that is where we're going to start getting in trouble. Because again, mental health content only goes so far before you have the same or not true. Those are your two options. And Connor did something that was not related to mental health content. I'm very happy for him. Total curveball there, but that was cool. I think people that do mental health content will either get rich enough to not have to do that anymore and they can do what they want, or they'll get bored and not do it anymore. Ultimately, I think mental health content has to be about the person that has the mental health issues or the whatever it is that they're talking about that they're helping people relate to. They need to open up and say, we can do this together. for however long you want to do this with me, we can do it together. We can still talk about it. We can talk about my daily life. I can go live and we can talk about your daily life. But it can't always be education till you die. It can't always be comedy till you die, because you won't. You're just not gonna do that. I know I keep saying you. It's the colloquial you, but
I feel very attacked. No.
yeah, I was like, this is not like a teaching or anything. But you're not going to be able to do it forever. And even if you could, why would you? What would be the point? For me, I stopped trying to, and people have noticed. It's funny when you stop growing in follower count, and I have. Instagram's doing well, but TikTok pretty much flatlined, and I'm okay with that. But people get very concerned, like you're gonna pick up the crack pipe or something. They're like, I noticed things on TikTok. Is everything okay? Is everything all right? Do you feel uninspired? I'm like, not at all. I feel very inspired. It's just not doing the typical thing that it's supposed to do, which is just engorge myself with followers until, I don't know, infinity. I'm just not doing that anymore. So my advice to anyone that is growing and thinks to themselves, where am I supposed to go from here? Get your followers. Don't even get your followers. Have your followers join you on what you're doing. They are not here because you said one thing about mental health and then they were like, sure, why not? They're here because they resonate with you, because they're going through these same struggles that you're going through, because they have the same weird thoughts that you do. They have the same little isms that you're going through. They're like, fuck yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Yeah. I want to be on this little journey with him. And that's what we're doing right now. We're going on a little journey with these people. But this can't be the only one. So I'm doing this Sassy Skeleton book. It's fun. It's different. I honestly, it's so refreshing to not be in front of a camera all the time and do something that's a little, retreated and inclusive, and then present it afterwards. Mm-hmm. And people love that. And they love the Sassy Skeletons. I'm like, great. It doesn't always even have to be a money-making thing. Let these people grow with you. Because what's going to happen if you don't is your circle's going to be too big. You're going to try and do too much at once. You're going to have as many followers as you could possibly have, and then they're going to look at you and they're going to say, what now? And you're going to say, I don't know. Because you've been spending so much time focusing on making sure that everybody liked you, you forgot what you were going to do next. So I'm really impressed with myself how I tied that back around.
I love that. That was beautiful. Someone cut that, and that's amazing.
It just came out on accident. I literally just word vomited that out on accident. But it's true. Ask yourself why you're here.
Yeah.
If you can figure out why, that's good. Work on that, and then pick another thing.
Totally. I've always had people ask that as well, because I left a really stable job and left, a completely different world to come do content creation and whatnot. And I've had to shift my mindset around content creation, because at the start, my mindset was, I'm going to get the most followers and I'm going to get so many brand deals and I'm going to be this big time influencer. And that was the thing that I was working towards. But I realized as I started doing it more, the fulfilling part of it for me, and I wonder if this is the same for you, is just how many people I help along the way, and the people that I impact along the way. And for me, that why has very much become I create content as a means to an end, which is help as many people as possible, whether that's through, journey to ADHD, or whether it's through coaching or whatever it's through. That became my why very, very quickly, which I love.
Right. I completely agree. Social media influencing all these things that we're doing and doing well, that is not the finish line.
Yeah.
Right? It can be for a very select few amount of people, and I don't want you to say. I think anyone that wants to go out and become a content creator absolutely should. I think you should. I don't care if you end up with 1,000 followers or 100 million. I think you should do it. I think it's very fulfilling if done the correct way and you don't, exhaust yourself. But did you know that if you retire at 65 years of age, you need at bare minimum $2 million to survive until you're done? So
Ow.
Ask yourself, nobody likes to think about that, but it's the truth. I mean, unless you live on Social Security or whatever, You need $2 million to say, I'm done, I'm not working anymore. Are you, so ask yourself, if this is all that you're putting time and focus on, am I going to make $2 million making content? If you feel like you are, don't listen to me. If you think maybe 2 million is a bit of a stretch, and that's just to retire when I'm old. If
Mm-hmm.
that's a bit of a stretch, then consider this a huge blessing that you get to interact with all these people and you get to build up an audience and they'll participate with you on the other things that you want to do. Don't limit yourself to constantly trying to gain followers. Do it. Gain followers. Have fun. It's a great feeling. I feel so liked. It's not even funny. I feel so liked. But the minute I started doing the book and knew that other people liked it because I did it, and because it was funny, but because I did it,
Yeah.
that was fun. That was
Mm-hmm.
fun to build up the audience, let them get to know me, and then do other stuff that they're participating in. That was far more fun than I've ever had doing content creation on the way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Oh, Dave, it's always such a pleasure to actually talk to you. And we're actually meeting in like a week and a half.
I know, it's so
So
exciting.
crazy. I'm so excited. So I can't wait to just like continue to learn more about you and your journey and whatnot. But as we wrap up this episode now, I want you to plug yourself, tell the people where to find you, how to find you, and, some of the projects or things that you're working on that you want to promote.
Yeah, so brave.dave on TikTok, brave.dave.official on Instagram, and Brave Dave Comedy on YouTube. And I have like 7 videos out, but I am peer pressuring myself to just upload the damn content. You guys would
Yes.
like it there. I'm just going to do it. Just going to do it.
Love it.
Um, every time that I did these podcasts, they said, tell us what projects you're on. I would like, I have to name 3. I'm making Sassy Skeletons. I'm making a book, and it's going to be out for the holidays. That's my plan. I'm sticking to it. And I would love for you to join on the journey and see these little sassy dudes. They make great gifts.
And they're fucking hilarious. Oh my god, I love them so much. I like
Thank you.
continually cackle out loud when I see them. So, yeah. So for anyone listening that doesn't know Dave or hasn't followed him yet, go follow his socials, check out the projects he's working on. You have an amazing link tree with all of your things in there. So check those out. And Dave, as always, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
It has. Likewise. Thank you so much for having me on your lovely show.
Thank you, Dave. All right. Talk to you guys later.
Ta-ta.